This is My First Job in Sports, the show created to kickstart your journey toward a successful career in the sports industry. Presented by SBRnet, your comprehensive source for data focused on sports fans and more. Here's your host of My First Job in Sports, Neil Schwartz.
Welcome to My First Job in Sports, the show that provides a little bit of inspiration, motivation, enthusiasm, a whole bunch of things for those that are looking to get that first job in sports. I'm joined today, of course, by my co-host, Dr. Ashley Gardner from Temple University. Dr. G, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you today, Neil?
I'm a little stressed, as you've heard. We've got our Get in the Game event coming up next Thursday, and needless to say, there are so many details. And, the one thing about me, Dr. G, is that I am not the most detailed person sometimes. And sometimes it can get a little bit away from me, but I'm trying to do my best. But on the other side of this is the 40th episode, of My First Job in Sports. And when I first started doing this, we 3 years ago, we didn't know how far we would get, but we've gotten to 40. And with you at my side, I'm hoping to get to 140. So I hope you're in it for the long haul, Dr. G.
I'm in it for the long haul, and congratulations, Neil. This is a fantastic show, much needed. We appreciate your dedication. And like you said, I'm looking forward to, 40 times 40 times 40.
Hey, I love that. And, look, My First Job in Sports works real well with Get in the Game event that we do. It's something that for me has been a passion, helping people get a job in sports. I always want to see the next generation. And a lot of times I've even said in me, it says, where is the next generation? Where are they coming from? And who's helping them and who's teaching them? And they've got professors like you who are doing that. And, I had the chance to be in two of Dr. G's classes on Monday. And there were about 90 kids in each class. By the way, I have never spoken to that larger group. So it was really a lot of fun. Hey, Dr. G, before we get to our guest, Lainey Selby from EHPLabs, I want to ask you something. What's your take on the NBA gambling situation that's going on right now? Do you think that it will taint all of sports? And, clearly there's another shoe that's going to drop soon. What do you think about all this?
I think that we have to get a handle on it, because it's spiraling, and we have to figure out how to manage it from an athlete's perspective, because there's a lot of issues and ethical issues and corruption issues. And so I think that at this point, sport managers, people that work in sport,
sure,
we have to figure out how we can get a hold of this thing, because gambling isn't going anywhere.
No, it's not. And look, there's an awful lot of money that's being generated by these online gambling companies. And, I listened to one of the online gambling companies on one of the shows. I think it was on CNBC. Actually, it was on CNBC radio. And, they were talking, look, he said, this hurts them too. Because if people start to doubt the credibility of sports and they say, look, what's the point of betting? What's the point of gambling? It's fixed anyway. It's going to hurt them too.
Yeah.
They don't want this. I mean, and if you read the story, it's kind of interesting. There was a situation with one player, who was giving out inside information, which of course is a problem. The other one was a card game, which of course is a problem. But I think the bigger problem is the outside influences that are, that will make things difficult for the sports gambling business. I have a lot of thoughts on it. As you know, we measure that data within the confines of the annual SBRnet study of fandom. I have my own opinions and thoughts. I'm not going to share them today because I'm going to get myself in trouble. I'm already in trouble with my wife. So I don't need to get in trouble with everybody else at this point. Well, I'm just in trouble because I've been cranky lately because of the event. But she'll get over it. I'll get over it. We'll get over it. So let's get to our guest, Lainey Selby. Lainey comes to us from EHPLabs. EHPLabs, by the way, is one of the many sponsors who is joining us at the Get in the Game Sports Business Conference that is going to be held November 7th through 9th in Baltimore at the Marriott Inner Harbor by Camden Yards. Dr. G is, of course, going to be one of our moderators, and I know she's one of our avid supporters. But Lainey, welcome to My First Job in Sports.
Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really excited for the conference as well.
We're really happy that you're on the show. Lainey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then talk to us a little bit about EHPLabs.
Yeah, I'd love to. So again, my name is Lainey. I grew up in Gaithersburg, Maryland, where I currently reside. I graduated from Gaithersburg High School in 2016. I like to kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about where I first started in my career path. And my first job ever, I was a pool attendant at a water park. I was on a swim team. And when I was 14 years old, I was like, I'm ready for a job. And so I got a job at the pool, which opened up my career path, which you'll hear about today. I have worked for EHPLabs for the last few months. I came from being a store manager at the vitamin shop. EHPLabs was actually one of my favorite supplement companies when I worked for the vitamin shop. So EHP sells its flagship supplement called OxyShred, which is a thermogenic fat burner. We have pre-workout, great superfood greens powder, protein powder, all that fun stuff to help everybody live their best lives through supplemental nutrition.
Dr. G is going to need to get a sampler box of all of that because as a general rule, whenever I call Dr. G, she's like, I'll call you back in half an hour. I'm working out. So.
And you got to drink your protein. You got to drink your protein.
Mm-hmm.
I actually do drink my protein. I make some shakes. I drink the pre-made ones. I do drink my protein. So Lainey, talk a little bit about the career path though, from being a lifeguard, someone that works at a water park to where you're at now. And what were the stops along the way?
Yeah. So I started as a pool attendant when I was 14. I actually was too young to be a lifeguard. So I really wanted to start working freshman year of high school, right into summer, going into sophomore year. I got a job manning water slides, making sure everybody was tall enough, picking up trash, maintaining the pool. And of course, the next upcoming years that transferred into becoming a lifeguard, which I absolutely loved. I loved, watching over people, making sure they were safe while they were swimming. And of course, being a lifeguard for swim meets and swim lessons, all the in between. With that, I started teaching swim lessons. I really loved working one-on-one with the kids and even adults to make sure that they were water safe and improve their progress in a pool setting, which eventually transferred into coaching a swim team as well. So that kind of went full circle. I went from being on a swim team to coaching a swim team. In that process, I was going to school for elementary education. Loved working with kids, wanted to transfer that to my career as well. So I'm going to school for elementary education and college. And then I was working as a swim instructor, which transferred into getting a promotion to be an aquatics manager. So I got my I got my pool operator's license, aquatic facility operator's license. So I learned how to not only operate the pool, but how to run the full facility, train the team, make sure they had the resources they need to make sure we were consistently running the way we should be. So fast forward a little bit, I got really, really passionate about it. I really wanted to make sure I continued to grow as a leader to not only help, the people I was teaching, but the young adults who were around me who were also learning the workplace. So I became really big on training, positive, constructive criticism, really making sure that I was providing everybody who worked for me the best resources they could to continue learning to move forward with whatever career they wanted to. Because regardless, it was a pool, but just learning how to run a business and operate with a customer base, it really transfers to a lot of other careers. So fast forward a little bit, I eventually received the role as the general manager of a swim school in Germantown, Maryland. So this is where I really started overseeing my own team. I had about 20 instructors on my team, which also included swim coaches. We would teach about 1,000 swim lessons to 1,000 children per week.
Wow.
And then, of course, I really wanted to make sure we could offer that for adults as well, because in the US, about 44% of adults don't or know how to swim, and then the other 66% don't. So I wanted to make sure we were offering that to our community as well. So I got really involved in making sure that we were being inclusive to everybody around us and our clientele around us in the Montgomery County area to give them all the resources that I personally could as a swim instructor and a manager. So pre-COVID, I was managing at a swim school. When COVID rolled around, business was, of course, really rough. Being in a setting where you're relying on being face-to-face with people, not only in a business, but in a pool, was really tough. So, of course, we lost a lot of our business and had to really find ways to make sure we were keeping everybody safe, which we were able to do through face shields and plexiglass guards between the students. And we made those accommodations, and I kept going, kept going on. So at this point in time, I actually had chosen to switch my major from elementary education to parks and rec management. I was finding it was really hard to run a business like this where I was there 45 to 55 hours a week and go to school. So I did choose to dive heavily into my career path, and I did set school aside. I think school is an amazing resource. My sisters are in school. I'm like, go to school, go to school, go to school. I wish that, in hindsight, I think I wish I would have made a balance a little bit more to make sure I had, classes like marketing or business management to really help me in my career path now. But I have a lot of people in my network who are helping me learn that on the side. So post-COVID, I was still with the swim school business, and I had lost about 100 pounds. I was on a lifestyle journey. I was unhealthy, was not moving, did not understand the ins and outs of nutrition. I had even played lacrosse my whole life, and towards the end of my lacrosse career, I gained a lot of weight. And so I wanted to make sure I kind of regained access to a better lifestyle, better health, and move forward with that. So at that point, I did choose to branch out of my career path, and I applied to be the store manager of a vitamin shop. I had never worked in retail before, but I felt confident about my ability to work with visual merchandising, and then I felt confident about my ability to share passion and coach others and run a successful business. So I worked towards that, got the role. I was with Vitamin Shop for about 4 years. And about 2 years in, I'm going to stress this, 2 years into Vitamin Shop, I started applying to supplement companies that I loved because I really wanted to focus on a brand and grow a brand. Vitamin Shop is an amazing company, have nothing but amazing things to say about them, but I just really wanted to hone in on one brand and help one brand grow. I started posting about my supplements and about my journey on social media back in 2021. And during that time, also started creating supplement education, really showing my followers what I'm taking and why, what things do, my favorite products. And that really fell into a passion for supplements like EHPLabs. So for the last 2 years of my career, I applied to jobs and I just didn't stop. So interestingly, May of 2025, this year, the Vitamin Shop location that I was in closed. I was transferred from store to store, and the last store I was in closed just due to lack of profitability. Things happen. I understood why it happened. And that is when I posted on LinkedIn. Power of networking here, posted on LinkedIn, and the CEO and founder of EHPLabs had reached out to me about a new role they were creating for retail marketing. And that's when that opened that door, and
got it.
Here I am now.
Wow, what a journey, Lainey. And one thing that you, Neil, and myself actually have in common is that we all have a weight loss journey. But what you did was you realized that your passion for wellness, your passion for business, your passion for sport could become a career. What was that moment when you realized all of these things that I'm passionate about can actually be my career, and you said bump school?
So I think I really started to realize that when in 2021, when I was still with the swim school business, my social media where I was posting about my supplements started to take off a little bit. And I was loving it so much. I was like, let me try to find a career where I can apply my current talents and my current learnings, but also make it something that I'm passionate about. When I worked for a swim, I am always, I like to say the queen of whatever I do. So like
I love that.
Good for you.
When I worked for the swim school, like everybody thought I was like a mermaid and I had the mermaid persona. Like every gift I would receive was like mermaid. Go to Vitamin Shop and then I'm like this gym persona. So I always have like such a passion for what I do. That's kind of how people become or start to know me. And that started to happen, with fitness in 2021. And then I left the swim school business. And when I left the swim school business, I didn't actually have the job with Vitamin Shop. I wanted to really make sure I wanted to make sure I was honing in and going into a career that I was going to be happy with. So I left the swim school business and I did a little bit of personal training, a little bit of marketing for a gym on the side until I found that role. And when I did that, I continued to lose weight. I was in a gym setting. I was loving it. And I had established that, I've lost a lot of weight. Maybe I could do a bodybuilding show. So I got my role with the Vitamin Shop. 2 months later, competed in a bodybuilding show. So that was very rewarding. And that was the first time I had actually flown down to Houston, went to Alpha Land, that big, beautiful gym that opened a few years ago. And that summer of 2021 was when I really made the switch to hone in on what are my resources, what can I do, and how am I going to find it?
Sure. So Dr. G is, of course, an educator at Temple University. And in fact, I was lucky enough to teach in a couple of her classes this week. But, I've worked with thousands of students over the years while I've been at SBRnet. And one of the things that I notice sometimes is that a lot of students kind of shy. They're not willing to kind of put themselves out. They're not even willing to necessarily kind of, put their personalities into whatever it is they're. Is that something you learn, Lainey, or is that something, that you developed over time, or has that always been, has Lainey always been out there?
I think in all transparency, I've always been a little bit of an extrovert, but I definitely, to be able to put my best foot forward in any role I've been in, I've always had to be really outspoken. Sure. I'm educating other people. I'm helping other people. And to some extent, every business I've been in is some form of sales. So regardless of how I feel that day, if I want to talk to somebody, if I don't, I really have to kind of drum up that energy and be like, here we go. Like, we're going to go do it. I might not, wake up that day, like wanting to have those conversations where I really want to be outgoing, but to be the best person I can be for my business, be the best person I can be for my customers, and network to my highest capabilities, I really have to put in that effort, bring that energy to the table, and smile. And, it doesn't mean that I have to be talking to people and running my mouth consistently, but, you do have to have a little bit of energy that you're willing to bring to the table, get out of your comfort zone, especially when you're networking in any form of marketing or sales industry. Positive energy can transfer to positive results. So if I, biggest piece of advice, find that energy and get out of your comfort zone. And it's going to take practice, fake it till you make it to some extent. You're going to, the first few times you do it, the first several times you're going to try to drum up that energy. You're going to feel like you're faking a little bit, but then that turns into something organic and something real, because you're going to learn as you go about moments where that energy is present, that those are going to be your best moments, whether you're networking, marketing, or in sales.
I've heard Dr. G say it. I've said it about getting out of your comfort zone more than probably, more than I can count. It sounds like that's a kind of a thing that you've kind of cultivated pretty well.
100%. You do not grow in your comfort zone. You cannot grow in your comfort zone. If you are comfortable, great. But the only places I've been able to grow as a person in so many different aspects, I'm not comfortable. but it does become more comfortable because it becomes more regular. And then you're going to do it enough that you're starting to get uncomfortable again, because in order to grow even more, you have to step away from that. So you're going to be, it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's worth it for the growth.
And I want to continue to talk about that a little bit, because you said that you created content, right? You created content about things you were passionate about. And then actually for Vitamin Shop, you were a content creator. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I'm teaching students now is that content creation is an actual path in sports. Yep. There are people that are social media managers, head of content creation for sport organizations and brands. And there are some students that are also like you that didn't mind getting out there and create some content and be an influencer, if you will. And so can you talk about what would you recommend to students that are really good at content creation, that may even be an influencer based off of their personal side? How can they prepare to get a job in content creation in this industry? Because you've done it. What are some things that they can do to prepare to really have a portfolio when they're graduated and can get a job?
Well, if you're content creating within your field, I always recommend linking that to things like your LinkedIn profile, bringing it up in conversation when you're networking. And of course, wherever you work, make sure they know you do that. Of course, I went to Vitamin Shop. I was already making that content. I wouldn't be a content creator. I wouldn't have been a content creator for the Vitamin Shop if I didn't consistently talk to my district manager, network with corporate about it, that kind of stuff. So when I went to the Vitamin Shop, my social media was not linked to work. It was just it was just kind of a fun account where I made this content for my followers. And of course, it did completely transfer into what I did at the Vitamin Shop was sell supplements. So when eventually I ended up putting it on my LinkedIn profile, posting the videos that I was making on my LinkedIn, when I would meet somebody in the industry, maybe a representative from a brand that came into the store, I'd give them my Instagram account. Eventually, that even turned into, let's do a collaboration together. Me and so-and-so brand would do a video together. And it just opens up, content creation can be a massive form of networking.
Sure.
But just like you have to put your foot forward to communicate with people, to get your name out there, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, conferences, you have to do the same thing with your social media, especially if it fits your career path. So don't set that aside as a hobby. Make sure it's in the forefront with you. If you are passionate about it and you want that to be a massive piece of your career, make sure that's the first thing you put in front of people. And then, of course, there are going to be roller coasters along that. Social media growth is not linear. So don't stop. Don't give up. Don't hesitate to try new things when it comes to content, and continue to get creative. Follow trends as you go.
I like that a lot.
There's really no one set answer for exactly what you should do, but network with your profile, and make sure it's out there, especially on the platforms like LinkedIn, Indeed. Make sure that's on your resume. And if you have not done so already, make sure you have a portfolio ready, whether it's a video link, PowerPoints. I know everybody kind of has a different preference, and put that in the forefront as well.
Hey, you're watching or listening to My First Job in Sports. We're speaking today with Lainey Selby from EHPLabs. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Lainey's going to be joining us at Get in the Game next week in Baltimore. But, you brought up something interesting. And Dr. G, you actually brought this up. But, being an influencer is something that is real. Last week, I was at the Sports Marketing Association conference, and they have a case study competition. And I was lucky enough to be the data provider for that case study competition. But what the case was about, and I have to give Becky Achen from University of Kansas a lot of credit here. She put the case together to talk about how can a football team, Arizona Cardinals in this case, benefit from influencer marketing, and how do you identify influencers, and what are the things that you would want, what kind of influence would you want to identify, and that kind of thing. And, in this influencer marketing is really, there is something to it. And, what are you finding? I mean, are you finding, the more that you get out there, the more you're getting noticed and the more the brand's getting noticed, Lainey?
So I think at this point in time, I've almost strayed away from the influencer piece, and I really use my profile for networking. So,
Okay.
of course, one of the big pieces of my role with EHP Labs is honing in on the in-store relationships that our brand has with the store managers and the teams that are selling our products. A lot of these stores, a lot of these employees have social media profiles. So this is where I'm really connecting with them. Not only the stores, but the EHP Labs ambassadors who are creating content around our product. By me having this profile and posting all things EHP Labs, not only am I educating my teams that I have these relationships with, I am putting product in front of our ambassadors, putting education in front of our ambassadors, putting information in front of my community as well. So your social media is always what you make of it. As I strayed away from kind of the influencer route, I almost use it as an Instagram, LinkedIn to stay connected with these stores, to make sure that they're consistently receiving information, new product launches, and it's just another method of communication that has become so relevant in today's world. You know, post 2020, social media has become the biggest form of marketing because it's word of mouth. You know, word of mouth is the strongest form of marketing, and that's really what social media is. So regardless of who you are, you're an influencer, you have a following. If a brand like the Cardinals decide to partner with you to have you make content in their stadium, go to their games, you're putting that in front of your entire following, which is your customer base, if that makes sense.
It definitely does.
Makes a whole lot of sense. And Lainey, I just want to say, I absolutely love what you do. I love what you do because you work in what I call sports production. Your companies, the companies that you work for, produces sports products, protein powder, premium protein powder. Because generally, when I ask my students, hey, what sector of sports do you want to work for? Nobody says sports production. Nobody says F&B. Nobody says apparel like Nike and Adidas or Cushnet. You know, can you talk more to students about the career path that lies in sports production? Because I don't think they realize working in sports is much more than working for the Eagles and the Lakers. You can work for, you know, EHP Labs. You can work for Gatorade. You can work for Adidas.
You can.
And I'll try to be brief about this because it's so vast.
Yes.
When you're working for, I'll say sports supplements, just for this example, but when you're working for sports supplements or Adidas or another brand, there are so many different sectors within the company where you can apply your talents. So of course you have the financial side, you have the human resources side where you can do training and development. You have marketing where you can work one-on-one with influencers. For EHP Labs, we do have influencer managers, people who come in and work one-on-one with our influencers to make sure they are doing what they need to, signing new influencers, making sure we're staying relevant. And then, of course, you have roles like mine where you're working one-on-one with the retail stores that are selling the products and pushing the communities. And you get to give these stores, samples of your products and experience them using them for the first time, which is so rewarding. Marketing itself, sales itself, those categories are so vast. So you can work one-on-one with account management. You can do events. You can do videography, just like you can do for the sports teams. Some of these roles apply to sports supplement companies as well. I mean, although I'm not sitting on the sidelines taking videos at a football game, there are opportunities where I'm standing, in January, EHP Labs is going to be attending LA Fit, a fitness expo where we have a huge booth, and we get to put our happy faces on and show our supplements to everybody, and we're going to be the center of everything. So there's, a different scale to what you're able to experience when you're working for these companies, not to mention a company that's CPG, consumer packaged goods. you get to attend things like expos, where you get to put your product in front of retailers for the first time, fitness expos. So the world is your oyster.
Lainey, doing what you do in a lot of ways, I use this expression a lot just in life in general, but you really are about where the rubber meets the road, for your brand. And, you're about speaking to consumers. You're about speaking to your distributors. You're really about, all of the various touch points. Talk a little bit about how you're able to, let's say craft the messages, how you're able to, deal with these different constituents. I mean, talking to consumers, quite different than talking to distributors, but it's still about talking, and it's still about talking about your product and getting out there. Speak to that a little bit, can you?
Sure. I think the best example I can give you here when talking and connecting with somebody is going into a store that doesn't know who I am. So this situation is applicable regardless of what my relationship is with any person in the company, any distributor, anybody I'm networking in. Go in, introduce myself, introduce the brand to who I'm talking to. And of course, you can introduce your social media if you find it relevant as well. Connect with that person. Talk about what your needs are. One big thing in business is also talking about where your problem areas are to figure out how to move forward with them. When I'm going into a store, my goal is to develop that team's knowledge base of my brand. So when you're going into a conversation, connecting with anybody, know what your goal is so you can understand how to shape your conversation and what information pieces you need to deliver to that person to make sure it's a successful interaction. So I'm going into the store, I'm introducing myself, introducing the line of product, talking about everything we have to offer, also talking about why the products are my favorite, why I chose the products. Of course, it's easy with me because I applied to EHPLabs knowing I loved the brand while being a store manager. When you add that passion behind what you do and you add those little pieces of information when you're talking to people that might not be too relevant to the conversation, it adds the personalization one-on-one with whoever you're working with. That'll help them remember you so you can move forward, have that relationship with the person, and they can have that relationship with your brand.
If I went on your social medias right now, what would I see on your social medias, just out of curiosity?
It's like a plethora of EHPLabs and gym content right now.
Got it. I was vaguely curious about that.
Yeah. I mean, my Instagram is Lainey_EHPLabs. So I'd hope that when you open my profile, you can feel the EHPLabs sparkles in the air.
You're representing on the show, so you're Dr. G's wearing her Temple University's. What do they call the school again? What do they call it?
STHM, Sport Tourism Hospitality Management.
Got it. And I'm of course wearing my brand, SBRnet. So everybody's branded up today appropriately. So good for us.
Yeah, and it sounds like when you're working for a brand that you're passionate about, but that you love, that passion is that extra that sets you apart from other people.
Absolutely.
And so when thinking about how to grow a brand, right? How to grow a brand, what do you think are the primary skills students need to be able to grow a brand and sell a brand at a high level like you have done throughout your career?
First piece is the most important: know your brand. Understand where your brand stands, the progress your brand has made, and make sure you know exactly what you're putting on the table for everybody. Even if you're in a role where maybe you're not directly selling or distributing the product,
sure,
know what you're representing. So when you're talking to people about it, they understand where you're coming from. I talk to anybody and they're like, oh, you know a lot. Well, I make sure that I understand our brand like the back of our hand. So if anybody asks me about any product or any ingredient out of any product, I can understand what it is and I can explain that to you. Mm-hmm. So understand where your brand is coming from and understand your brand's mission. So when you're putting it in front of everybody, you understand what kind of energy has to be behind the brand. For EHPLabs, we're a brand that wants to help every person along their fitness lifestyle, regardless of where you stand, with everyday health, one day at a time. It's not a journey that has an end. It's a journey that's ongoing. So we're here to help everybody do that. So understand what your brand does and why, and then understand where your brand wants to go. Understand, the upcoming, even as simple as like upcoming launches,
Sure.
Upcoming events. Just really understand why your brand is moving the way it's moving. So the more you know about who you're representing, the better you can put that on the table for other people.
So you're listening and watching Lainey Selby from EHPLabs on My First Job in Sports. And, Lainey, we're kind of at that, our 30-minute mark. So I guess I wanted to ask you the question we always like to ask at the end. What's the one big piece of advice that you want to give out to, whether it's students or somebody who's looking to get a job in the business of sports? And in your case, it's working for a supplement brand, but, it really could be anybody. But I think in your case, talk a little bit about, the advice you might want to give to somebody about going to work for a brand.
Don't give up on where you want to be. When you are starting a new career or a new job, it might not be where you want your final destination to be,
Sure.
but that will set you up for success in the future. And once you have that role where you can put the passion and put your foot on the pedal and put the momentum behind it, you're going to be happy. And when you have a job that you love, I'm a firm believer that you don't work a day in your life.
I believe that too.
Continue to drive for what you want. It might not be tomorrow. As I mentioned, I worked for 2 years for a role that I loved, and I'm here now. Especially in today's industry, the workforce is tough getting into new roles. So keep going. Every step on your journey is a milestone for your resume, a milestone for networking, and it matters in your journey. So be passionate. And when you're passionate, you don't work a day in your life.
The other thing I want to say is celebrate your milestones. Don't be afraid to, take a step back, smile a little bit, celebrate your milestones, celebrate your accomplishments. But then move on to the next one. Don't over celebrate. What my father used to say when I was playing football, when I was in junior high school or whatever, he used to say, and I scored a touchdown, he says, act like you've done it before. So, that's the lesson. Hey, so Dr. G and I want to thank Lainey Selby from EHPLabs for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
We're going to see Amy. We're going to see Lainey at Get in the Game next week. In fact, almost a week from today, actually, I guess a week and a day from today, or actually a week and 2 days from today. But we'll see Lainey. Yes. We'll see you there. Dr. G is going to be doing a great panel on sports tourism, event management. She always packs a lot of punch in her panels, so make sure you sit through it. I'm looking forward to it. So again, Lainey, thanks for coming on My First Job in Sports.
Thank you, guys. It was awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to My First Job in Sports. This show has been produced by Brad Mabey. Back episodes can be found at sportsmarketanalytics.com, on the SBRnet YouTube channel, or all major podcast platforms. If you like the show, give us a great review. Also, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or X.